What is poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another YouTube video, and today we are finishing off our series and starting on another one. We are going to be continuing this sort of mini-series, taking a look at the Deadpool sort of extended universe from this Deadpool 3. I am going to say spoilers ahead for Deadpool 3 if you haven't seen it, but this video is coming out in September, so if you haven't seen it, the film came out last month, what the fuck are you doing? Go watch it. But I will be taking a look at some of the other movies with some of the other characters who did make cameos into this movie in the next couple of days, next couple of weeks, just to continue this Deadpool trend and keep up the hype for it, because I recently watched this movie and I think it is fucking incredible. And I'm making this video hours after I watched the movie to sort of gather my thoughts and let the hype settle down, but it hasn't. I am still absolutely hooked with this movie. So without any further delay, let's get into what Google has to say. So Deadpool 3, or formerly known as Deadpool and Wolverine, is a 2 hour and 7 minute action comedy which came out in 2024. It has an 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb and 79% on Rotten Tomatoes. So Deadpool's peaceful existence comes crashing down when the Time Variant Authority, or TVA, recruits him to help safeguard the multiverse. He soon unties with his world, or his would-be pal, Wolverine, to complete the mission to save his world from an extraterrestrial threat, or an external threat. So how this story actually starts is Wade wanting to be an Avenger and getting turned down by Happy Hogan, so he turns to a car dealership and basically just chills. He just chills at the car dealership with Peter, and he retires as Deadpool. He gets broken up with Vanessa yet again for being a no-good, worthless nobody who just wants purpose, who just wants to be someone, wants to be something. And then the TVA come knocking at his door on his birthday, and they basically say, Logan is dead in your world, so your timeline is slowly dying because he's an anchor being, and without him, your universe is fucked. So his noble sacrifice was absolutely beautiful, but you know what? Your world is dying because of it, so we're welcoming you to the main MCU timeline, but your world is going to die in the process. Deadpool says he's Marvel Jesus, and this is where most people walked out of the movie for whatever fucking reason, and, you know, he says, no, fuck you, I don't want my world to die, I love my friends. And he goes to dig up Logan's body and finds out that he is actually dead and is just an adamantium skeleton. He then uses that body to absolutely fucking decimate these TVA soldiers to NYSE, I think the band's called. I could be wrong. But obviously, like, bye, bye, bye. He absolutely does an amazing dance number and fucking incredible fight scene. I was so fucking hyped. It was like one of those moments where, like, I couldn't breathe. I was that excited. It was so good. I had a constant smile on my face for the entirety of this movie, and it started with this scene, and it was fucking magical. We then continue the story with him time jumping, multiverse jumping, seeing a load of different Logans, and finding the worst Logan out of them all, and taking him to be the new anchor being for his universe. And, you know, they get pruned and spend most of the movie in, like, the nowhere, the Badlands, the end of time. They then run into Johnny Storm from, like, the Fantastic Four, Chris Evans, fucking incredible. And they basically get Mad Maxed, captured, sent to the Warlord, and they make an example out of Johnny Storm. They manage to escape without being killed, and they then make their way through. They find Dogpool, they find Nice Pool, they drive to basically meet their team, which is Elektra, X-23, Blade, and fucking Gambit. Gambit's first time on the big screen. I was fucking hyped. I fucking loved it when Channing Tatum came on as Gambit. It was fucking incredible. They then go back to fight at the Ant-Man's dead body, and they have a really fucking clean fight scene. They obviously turn Wolverine's mind around and help him and, like, agree to help. They then get sent back to their world, back to their timeline. However, the main villain follows and wants to sort of, you know, use their time deletion machine to destroy every timeline. Deadpool and Wolverine fight through like an army of Deadpools, like Kid Pool, Baby Pool, Cowboy Pool, like Nice Pool, all of the above, fighting through them all to get to the bad guy. They use the power of friendship to defeat the bad guy and defeat the machine, and they live happily ever after in Deadpool's timeline with X-23 and Logan now living with them and having a happily ever after. That's where the movie ends, and it was fucking incredible. I absolutely adored this movie. The comedic timing, the sort of good cop, buddy cop movie that we have going on with the relationship between Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, the on screen chemistry between them is incredible. I'm 90% sure Hugh Jackman's most said word in this movie was fuck. Like, he was constantly telling Wade to shut the fuck up, and it felt like Deadpool and Wolverine from the comics was put onto the big screen. It was so good. A lot of people have had complaints with this movie saying that it is just like fan service and just trying to be cameos and stuff like that. And I do agree, but most of the cameos are for shock value, and you won't get that watching this again. So the rewatchability of this movie has gone down because of that, but I don't think that makes it a bad movie. Getting to experience this movie for the first time is an incredible feeling and is just an incredible experience overall, and you will never forget that. That is something like I say with like Infinity War or with other movies like Spider-Man No Way Home, getting to experience those movies for the first time, seeing these characters come on screen, characters that you've loved, wanted to return for so long, seeing them actually come back is just an experience in a whole. And yes, I have rewatched No Way Home a couple of times, and again, the sort of hype and shock value of these characters coming out isn't as like dramatized or isn't as big, but it is still able to rewatch this movie again. And I would go watch this movie again if given the chance. It is so good. And the sort of cameos and the characters in this movie, they're not just there for shock value. They have purpose, they have significance. They brought Pyro back from X-Men, like the original X-Men's, and he had a purpose to the story. He was there to betray the main villain. We had the Juggernaut. We needed him. We needed his helmet. He was important to the story. We needed Elektra, Blade, X-23, and Gambit. They were important. They were the ones that helped Deadpool move on and sort of helped him get to the main villain to get back to his timeline. They were there. They helped out. They were important to the story. They weren't just there for a quick gag like Johnny Storm was. Johnny Storm was just there for a quick gag. I will admit he was like the one exception of this rule, but most of the other like cameos were there for a reason. They had a purpose. They had like significance, which is why that I don't mind that they made such a big deal out of these cameos. Like, they were there for a reason. They were there for a purpose, and that like that's what makes me feel like the point of, oh, it's just there for like the big dramatic reveals. That's all this movie is. It's like fan service. No, like the story is still good. It's still a nice introduction to bringing Deadpool and Wolverine into the MCU whilst also closing the book on the Fox era of Marvel. I think it's a nice send off to all these characters, like they said in the movie, giving Gambit, giving Blade, giving Elektra these nice final send offs, and just putting a good end, a good close to the Fox chapter of obviously the Marvel universe, which is very interesting and just so nice and beautiful. The CGI in this movie is so much better than the CGI crap that we've had in the past couple of Marvel movies. Much better than Quantum Mania, much better than Shazam, much better than Fast and Furious. It is like, and CGI is turning back to normal now and is like improving and steadily getting better and looking a lot nicer. We have Wolverine being a lot more animalistic in this movie than he is in prior movies, which I quite like and I think is pretty amusing. Just seeing him run around on all fours chasing Deadpool. The fight scenes between Deadpool and Wolverine are also quite funny and amusing. I think it's really interesting and just puts that extra strain on their relationship, that extra struggle to get through this mission and actually work together, and it just makes them coming together and working together in that power of friendship at the end a lot more meaningful. I know most stories end with like the power of friendship, but they're already friends throughout the whole movie. But with this one, we have the constant on off of the will they, won't they, like be buddies throughout this entire movie. It's like will they, won't they sort of befriend each other, will they, won't they, and it just adds so much sort of more oomph to the final sort of come together of the characters where they're working together trying to sort of save the day together instead of on their own, or one of them doing the noble sacrifice compared to just one of them, you know. And it is the jokes. I was giggling, I was smiling, I was laughing throughout this entire movie. The jokes are on point. It has the same sort of jokes like it does in the other two movies. It feels like a continuation. It feels like a good story flow. Again, I have recently watched Deadpool 1 and 2 again in anticipation for this one, and it feels like a solid flow. It feels like a constant story. My only gripe with this movie, is that it does use some slang terms and some references which I do feel will be outdated in a couple of months. They do say let him cook. They do say a couple of other terms which are used quite frequently now, but I feel like in a couple of months they won't be as used as often and will seem like cringe when rewatching this movie. Maybe in 10, 20 years it'll feel like nostalgia when you watch this movie again, hearing the slang and lingo of this time, but maybe in like 5, 3, 6 years, it'll feel like cringe. So it does have that sort of cringe curve to it to go from cringe to nostalgic. And I don't know how sort of movies will continue because obviously in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Mutant Mayhem, they did use Riz and they did use other words like that. And again, those words are slowly on their way out. So I don't know how relevant they'll be, you know, anytime now or into the future when it just again it impacts the rewatchability of the movie and the constant coming back to this movie to get that little bit of oomph from it. We have been doing a little bit of a Deadpool sort of thing on the channel, so I will be taking a look at the Blade movies and the Elektra movies and maybe some of the 20th Century Fox X-Men movies as well, just to sort of continue the hype and to continue this Deadpool trend and to sort of finish off all these movies and send them all off nicely like this movie did do for them. This movie's just great. It's got great actors, great comedic timing, great sort of character chemistry, great character relationships, a really nice story, and obviously it brought Gambit to the big screen, one of my favorite X-Men characters, and he was my biggest shock. This movie was spoiled for me. I saw Johnny Storm and I saw Blade, so I already expected those two characters in it. What I didn't sort of appreciate with this movie is that the emphasis on Lady Pool, Dog Pool, and Kid Pool, Baby Pool were pushed very heavily with the marketing of this movie, but they were barely fucking in it. I do understand that it is sort of Ryan Reynolds' family that do play these characters, but they weren't there. I don't care if this is recency bias or not. I think this is a good movie, and this is a movie that I can rewatch again and again and again. And I am going to give that a 9 out of 10. I think Deadpool 3 is a 9 out of 10. It's a really solid conclusion to the Deadpool trilogy, and I'm excited to see him in the future of Marvel.